Greetings, friends. Randall Nagy here. Hey, once again, I wanted to show you some of the amazing things we're able to do with, once again, surprisingly enough, Microsoft technologies. Now, you may remember that I did a lot with Visual Studio 2019 on Microsoft Windows. I would take a moment and show you how you can install VSCode on your machine. Now, the interesting thing about these kind of videos is that they do tend to go out of date probably every 6 months, if not every year. So, while I'm loath to put together a video that's only going to be around for a very short time, I can probably assure you that what you see here is going to be different, at least from the installation process. But the techniques I'm going to show you today would probably work for 3 to 5 years so that you can install VSCode on your machine. Starting out as I am here with my Ubuntu 2 virtual machine running on VirtualBox. The first thing you need to know about VSCode is that there are several flavors that we can use, from actually running on Microsoft Windows proper to Mac OS and, of course, Ubuntu. At the time of this recording, there are 3 different ways to use VSCode, either, of course, as a Red Hat distribution or the Debian distribution, or the way that I choose to run it after having failed at the other 2, simply by downloading the gzipped tar file. Going over to code.visualstudio.com, and once again at the time of this recording, having once again tried each one of these things with limited success, as I mentioned, what worked for me was to download and open the gzip file using the Archive Manager so as to extract the file into my downloads directory. Right-click to copy. Those a half dozen pop-ups. Then right-click to paste the folder on my desktop. Not really a wonderful name. I'll just change this over to be IDE, simply because I'm going to allow everything to be moved around from my VirtualBox to other places. We see that we have, as you'd expect, the VS Code, but this is installed for the 64-bit version of Linux. Now, although the application is able to be executed, the strange thing about it, of course, is when we launch it, we're not going to be able to run it once you select an application. And to tell you the truth, there is no application that'll run a native program, which I've always found a little strange on this particular variant of Linux. But availing ourselves to press the Control-Alt-T to open up a terminal, and then say Control-L once again to show our path, I can copy this, and then I can paste that path so as to change directory to this. And you'll notice that, once again, the code is what we want to run. And even though it is marked, once again, here as being executable, the most reliable way to tell people to run the application is to simply change to the directory and then type in code with a / to say that we're looking for the code file in this directory. If you're like me, you're going to be surprised at how amazingly cool Visual Studio Code came up to be, not only from the fact that it looks very nice on Ubuntu, other Linuxes, as well as Microsoft Windows, but how quickly it is in this version, and this is what's prone to change, it is to install support for Python and other languages. Let's go ahead and click on Python and get that running. And by clicking install, of course, you'll see that we have a wonderful set of videos here to tell us how to get things going, but I'll save you the trouble of reading all that by simply launching the installers and calling your attention to that we also have a much anticipated support for some of my other favorite languages, such as C#, C++, even Node.js, let alone Docker, PHP, Go, HTML, CSS, and of course one of the most compelling reasons why I think you'd want to be using VS Code is not because the IDE is wonderful, but more importantly, because it allows us to be free of some very brittle support for project files, donning instead the ability to run a file directly but also because as a properly designed operating system, as well as running purely on C and C++ for the most part, with a lot of Python thrown in, of course, Linux is more efficient than any other operating system that I've had the privilege to get to know rather well. Note here that once we start up, of course, although we have installed the support, it says that there is no Python interpreter being selected. That's not the first problem we're going to run to. Later on, you're going to see that VS Code also uses something called pip, as we all know what pip is, but it shells out to it or executes it directly. And once I select my interpreter, I can go ahead and click on the Python 3.8, which I have installed presently on my machine. And once we've associated an interpreter with VS Code, we're going to say File, New File, to create a shebang, which really isn't strictly required in this context, but is always a good idea to use on Linux. Save our newly created file into our IDE directory, calling it something trivial. And once we provide the file name, of course, we see we get our wonderful syntax colorization. Now, as I mentioned, there is something else that needs to be done, and we need to install pylint. And let me warn you ahead of time that we're going to obviously need to have pip installed, which I do not have, and you probably won't have installed as well. The thing we're going to want to do, of course, is press Control-Alt-T or create another window that will allow ourselves to check to see if we have pip installed, which in this case I do not, and following the advice, we'll install pip before allowing Visual Studio to install the support for the Python 3 package manager. Because I've previously updated as well as upgraded my system, I can be sure of a minimal back and forth. And of course, those who have been using Linux for a long time know that before we install anything like VS Code, or certainly package support, that we should have previously run an apt-get update, followed by an apt-get upgrade, as we feel inspired. Once we've installed support for pip, of course, we can go ahead and put together our syntax checker, or the lint, as we have called it for decades under the C and C++ world. And you can see that we now see that we're using Python 3 to run the module, but more importantly, the module has been installed, which it had not been previously. Ignoring the warning we've got, and noting also that having the lint is optional, you'll notice how wonderful it can be now to not only be able to run Python, but more importantly, to be able to put breakpoints in our code, start debugging, select the type of debug we need to do, so as to allow ourselves to breakpoint and either continue, step over, step into, or step out of our fragment, stepping over, of course, and using the same keys we've all come to become familiar with Visual Studio. You'll notice how incredibly fast running Python is. For the record, I am running this on my 6-core processor laptop under Oracle's VirtualBox with only 2 cores installed. I was using all 6 of those cores under Visual Studio. So I hope you enjoy this short video. I hope I have converted you or convinced you that you should be at least checking out VS Code, and not only if you write Python, but more importantly, if you would like to run many other types of applications, either C#, Romano, C++, even Java. One of the wonderful things you can do when you're running Python is also download and install support for the Django, Flask, Docker, and many other modern software development strategies using VS Code. Thanks for watching, and I'm looking forward to seeing you running Linux in the professional software development world.